This video is about how to test a rule and assumes that you have just built your first rule. Testing a rule is an important part of the process, especially when you're just starting out. Even though a rule may be and look simple, rules are complex things which employ many moving parts, and you want to be sure that your rule works before you put it in production. So, what you will learn about test mode, production mode, and the differences between them, how to test in test mode until you're satisfied the rule works, then moving the rule to production. Start by clicking on the Evaluation tab under Rule Options in the Rule Editor. By default, rules start out in test mode. In test mode, a rule fires only once by default and then deactivates itself, giving you an opportunity under your control to assess what happened. Under test mode options, the second option, to use an overriding email address, is useful during testing because you can force all emails to be sent to your inbox even if the rule fires on live records. So, let's see how to run the test. First, make sure that you have saved the rule as active. Then, make sure you have a record that the rule will be able to see. You do this by creating a new record at this point or updating an existing record so that it has a fresh, last modified date. You need to do this after you save the rule as active. The rule sees records that have a last modified date greater than its internal control date time, which starts off with the date and time you brought up the rule editor the first time for this rule. You have the option of running the rule immediately. If you don't, the normal cycling will run the rule anyway. To run the rule immediately, navigate to the page that lists the rule. You can do this by clicking the Follow-up Rules tab, selecting the rule, and clicking Run Rule. You will then see, usually within a few seconds, the results of the rule. If the rule fired, you'll want to check that it fired on a record that correctly matched the rule conditions, and that any emails it sent arrived in the inbox at their scheduled time, looking the way you want them to. If anything needs correcting, you will then, after making the corrections, go back to the rule editor, check the active box, because it was deactivated after firing, click Save, and run the rule again. And repeat this cycle as many times as you like until the rule is working to your satisfaction. If the rule did not fire, you'll need to check that you have, as the last action before running the rule, created or updated a record that matches the rule. If you did do this, then the most likely explanation is that no record matches the rule. You'll need to check the rule conditions as against the record you expected to fire. Make the necessary adjustments and click Run Rule again. When you're satisfied, go back to the Evaluation Mode tab in the Rule Editor, select Production Mode, and click Save. After this point, you will not be able to move the rule back to test mode. You will need to delete and recreate the rule if you want to run it in test mode again. Now that the rule is in production, it will, by default, cycle round 24/7 and fire on unmatched records, incrementing its control date time so that it only looks at new data events. The default cycle time is 25 minutes, and for Salesforce Enterprise Edition, there are other options. In production mode, unlike test mode, the rule will not fire twice on any record. You do have a production mode option that could be useful for specific applications. By setting an override email address, emails will be redirected to this address instead of the lead or contact address. The normal mode of operation is forward-looking, real-time. You can backdate a rule so that it starts looking at records with an earlier last modified date, but this should only be used in situations where, for example, you're starting out and should not be used for, say, thousands of records. BizConnector is not intended to be used like a mass emailer. Once a rule is in production, it acts like your personal assistant 24/7 until you deactivate or delete it. Happy testing!